Yo, what is up guys? It is Bumfris, back with another episode of Entitled Parents. Today's episode is an absolute banger and I know you're gonna love this one. Do me a massive favor, leave a like on the video for 7,212 Bumfris points. And like I said, if this video can hit 5,000 likes, the next episode of Entitled Parents will be half an hour long. Once you've done that, sit back, relax, and get annoyed at some entitled parents. The cast for this one is SM, who is the entitled soccer mum. SD is the daughter who works under me and also plays soccer. She's 18 years old, and me is me. So this one takes place a few years back. It was shortly before my store manager abruptly quit, and I ended up running the store for a third of a year. Part of my role involved dealing with staffing issues. At this Dress for Less store, it's very hard to get fired for anything, including being a no-show. If you had 2 consecutive no-shows or 3 non-consecutive no-shows in a short period, you could be let go for job abandonment. You could call in all the time and still have a job, and some did this for a while, but then you would get a lot fewer hours after that because we could not rely on you. My boss was still making the schedule, and he based it around the availability that was provided to him by the staff. So SD had turned in her availability at the start of the semester, and she was scheduled around that. She had maybe 1 to 2 days a week scheduled tops. At this point, she had not shown up for about 2 weeks, leading to 3 non-consecutive days. I worked that evening and tried to call to get a hold of her. On the second day of her not answering, which was about 3 calls, I decided to leave a voicemail. I said, "Hi, this is me at the retail store. Due to you having 3 consecutive days of not showing up for work, we are going to have to end your employment with us. Reach out to me if you have any questions at this number. Thank you." This was the script that my company gave to me. I let the manager know and all was settled. The next morning I opened the store, and at that moment, I was in the office getting some paperwork ready for the day. The phone rang and I picked it up to an angry voice demanding to speak to me. I politely said that it was me and how could I be of help. She proceeded to yell at me and how I ruined her daughter's day, and I stated that I didn't know who she was referring to, but that I do not recall doing anything today that could be looked at that way. She then told me that she was SD's mum and that what we did was unprofessional and horrible. I told her that since SD is 18, I cannot go into details of her daughter's employment, and she screams, "My daughter is just a kid." And I replied, legally, that is not true. She continued, "Well, you scheduled my daughter for times that she cannot work and when she has school and practice, so she should not be fired." I calmly replied that we staff our store based on the availability that is provided to us, and it is set in the system so that it will only allow that. She said that it's not true and that her daughter is on a soccer scholarship at a local community college, and I replied, that is good for her, but if she's scheduled to work and cannot, she needs to be able to let us know, as we do have a business to run. She yells, "My daughter is going to school on a soccer scholarship and she has to practice hard on soccer, so you have to work around that." I reply again, we staff based on the availability that we are provided. And for staff to be employed here, they have to show up for their shifts. I did say this a little testedly. At this point, she followed up with, "My daughter is going to school to get a much better job than you have in retail, and she is going to be a teacher." I curtly replied, "Oh, that's nice. One of my degrees is in education." She demeaningly says back to me, "And you work here?" I do, and luckily, it pays about twice as much as a teacher makes, so there is nothing in you that can talk down to me. I said this angrily as I slammed the phone. The job market for teachers sucked, and I wasn't necessarily delighted with my career at the moment due to some life situations. She called back immediately and I picked it up, and when I heard it was her, I hung up again, and she did not call back after. What upsets me about this story more than anything is that this mother is doing nothing but setting her daughter up for failure. First of all, it's clear that the daughter didn't care about the job, and that kind of attitude she probably got from her mother in the first place. Secondly, the daughter's left the mother to do all of her dirty work for her, rather than calling up the employer herself, whether by her own choice or not, isn't setting her up for success because she's not learning from her mistakes. And lastly, when your mother sticks up for you no matter what you've done wrong, just like before, you're never going to learn from your mistakes, and you'll never be able to properly grow as a person unless you embrace your own mistakes, learn what you did wrong, and make changes. I care for a 2-year-old full-time, as well as her sister, but only after school. The little one's allergies are super bad right now, as their family just moved here a few months ago, so this is their first Texas spring. So we've been touring indoor playgrounds lately for her physical activity. We usually rotate between McDonald's, a bouncy house place with an awesome toddler area, and Chick-fil-A. The worst or most neglectful parents are usually at Chick-fil-A, at least that's what I've found. So we go early so that she doesn't get trampled by unsupervised big kids. Today, about half an hour in, a man walks into the play area and sets his toddler on the floor and walks back out. It was just me and my charge at that point, but I was still shocked. Who drops their toddler off in a room with complete strangers? There are 2 big windows, but the area I was sitting in is in a corner with solid walls. Only about 25% of the play area is visible from the main dining room. The little boy starts fussing almost immediately. A minute or 2 later, 3 big kids, aged somewhere between 4 and 9 approximately, came in and started running around like crazy. The boy got scared, and when one of the big kids left, he followed her. He clearly didn't want to be in there. Dad just brought him back in, plopped him down, leaving without a word. As soon as another unsupervised kid left, he followed. And this happened 2 more times. The last time he brought him back in, he said very exasperated, "Can't you watch him for me since you're watching your kids too?" I told him no, and that I wasn't watching my kids. I was a babysitter for the one little girl. I charged $15 an hour and prorate by the half hour. Cash up front. He just looked at me for a minute, then took his boy to the counter and asked to speak to the manager. I couldn't hear the conversation because I was in the play place, but there was lots of hand waving and pointing. The dude left after the manager repeatedly shook their head. The manager told me later that he was demanding I be removed because I solicited him. So just to get things straight, just because this person was there and they happened to be looking after another kid, this entitled dad decided that they were going to automatically look after his kid as well? Like, it's one thing if you walk in there, you just need to grab a coffee or something and you're like, "Hey, I just need to grab a coffee. Do you mind just watching him for like a minute or 2? I'll be as quick as I can, I promise." I mean, how different is that than somebody saying, "Can't you just watch him? You're already watching somebody else, so you must be able to just do it, right?" I don't know. Sometimes I just feel like if entitled parents weren't so rude or entitled, they might actually be able to get things they want by just being polite. But let's be realistic, that's absolutely never going to happen when it comes to entitled parents. This afternoon, I look outside my bedroom window and find a snow cone truck in front of our yard. Literally in our yard. I told my dad and he was kind of pissed off, but oh well. It's not really like he could do anything. I went to go clear my head and went for a drive around town. When I got back, there was an insane amount of children with their parents in our yard, and I could barely get into our driveway. I then took my dad to the neighborhood dock to check the tide. I wanted to see if it would be a good time for kayaking. It was, so we went back home again to an insane crowd of germy children. We noticed a work truck from the HOA that was parked next to the snow cone truck, and my dad rolled his window down and asked if he was shutting it down. He said yes, and we pulled the truck out to load the kayaks, and we overheard the new commotion. Mrs. Karen and her gremlin were yelling at the officer and the snow cone man. I would like to clarify at this point in the story that we live in a gated community. There are strict rules as to who can enter and when. The HOA provides contracting barcodes to get in with, and Mr. Snowcone must have had one. One major rule is that if you're going to host or cater any distracting events that may mess with the flow of traffic, yada yada, you first have to give notice or seek approval from the HOA office. This man did not get approval and therefore was being shut down, especially because of the current state of the world. Karen, however, continues to yell and looks over me and my dad and she goes, "They just shut us down because they're mad that you're in their yard. We're just trying to get some ice cream and it's no fair that people have already gotten some before us and now we can't." Keep in mind that we have literally never done anything to aid in the shutting down of this operation. I couldn't hear exactly what the HOA officer said, but it was something to the effect of, "Ma'am, this crowd is not practicing social distancing. There are too many people here that is risking the safety of everyone. We also never had issued any approval for this man to set up here, so he must leave." We continued to load the kayaks as all the Karens and Susans shot daggers in our direction. I'm pretty sure I even heard one use the typical line of, "The mean man who won't let you get ice cream won't stop us," saying this as the man was packing up. There was at least 4 mums still waiting as the guy was shutting down. When the guy finally got in his truck to pull away, an older couple walked up and asked him if he was done for the day. They were very sweet and I actually felt kind of bad for them, but just them and no one else. The man goes, "Yeah, we're done unfortunately," and in a very snarky tone goes, "The officer yelled at us and said we weren't practicing social distancing even though we were. So now the fun is ruined and I have to go." As he said this, he again looked at me and my dad as if we had something to do with it. Long story short, half the neighborhood hates us for no reason and there's a very good chance that they're gonna get sick soon. So a little update as well, my dad has been reading on the neighborhood app or whatever it's called, and everyone is so pissed about it being shutting down. The truck is coming back and is going to be parking on one of the Karen's driveways, and he is giving away snow cones for free. And parents are just going to Venmo him to get around not being able to sell them here. I wish them the best of luck. You're all probably gonna think that I'm really stupid for what I'm about to say, but when I started reading this story and they said there was a snow cone truck out the front of their house, I was literally picturing like one of those plow trucks that they use to get rid of snow, not what I would usually just call like a regular ice cream truck. So yeah, it wasn't until like halfway through the story that this made any sense to me whatsoever, and quite frankly, I feel like an absolute idiot. And as a result, I'm just not gonna make any comments about this story because clearly these Karens don't have any common sense to know that this person obviously wasn't involved in getting the truck removed, and I clearly have no common sense and don't know what a snow truck is. We're basically the same person. For a bit of backstory, I live in a rural farming town. We have tangerine plantation with some farm animals and bees. As my father is in pension after his third injury during the war, our bee business is keeping us fed. We had little money, and when I went to nautical school in a city 150 kilometers away, money was really tight. My mother helps on our estate with me and my younger brother. Our next door neighbors have 3 children. They are 18, 16, and 15. Their kids are literal horrors. They have no respect for anyone or anything, and they have multiple times struck their own mother in public. Now, onto the story. Our bees are stationed at the end of our estate inside a fence that is 5 meters inside our property to keep badgers and hogs away from them. I started to notice a big decline in beehives that are closer to the fence. On further inspection, I found a lot of residue of firecrackers of high power underneath them. I told my father and he was livid, because someone is literally taking bread out of his children's mouths by doing that. As the days passed, even more beehives started dying. It was reaching critical point that almost all of our hives were missing their queens because vibration scared the queens and she fled, or she died of malnutrition because her drones fled. One night, I started hearing firecrackers from the edge of our estate and went to investigate. I crept to the edge and saw those mongrels putting them right under the hives and firing them there. I am calm most of the time, but after a lot of things that happened in my life, I had a lot of pent-up rage inside me. I jumped from my hiding place, screaming at them and absolutely losing it at them. I'm 190 centimeters tall and 90 kilos of muscle forged by daily farm work. And after I vented my rage on them, I picked them up one by one and threw them in a ditch that is separating our 2 estates. Morning after that, our show began. It was the entitled dad on our door, fuming. He was yelling at my father about me beating his kids and forbidding them to play. My father, not being a chill person, bursted at him for his kids having caused 30k in damages on his hives. The entitled dad hissed that they were playing and that who cares about filthy insects and that he will see us in court. We went to court 3 months later and won the case because his kids admitted to trespassing and intentionally destroying hives. They were fined for destruction of property and they had to replace all of our hives from their own money, plus the fine from EU for killing an endangered species. The entitled dad doesn't talk to us, but his wife still does, and she is the most kind person, and I feel sorry for her because she deserves a better family. Might just be me, but I feel like there might be a little bit more going on here than just some entitlement from the dad. Sounds to me like the family as a whole may be just a little bit messed up, and the dad probably hasn't been too great of an influence on their kids. I guess at the end of the day, you don't know what happens behind closed doors, and all we know is what happened in this story. But even if we're just going off this story alone, it sounds like this dad fits the bill of an entitled parent absolutely perfectly. Okay, so I don't know if this deserves to be on here like others do, but whatever. Me and my mum were at Dunkin Donuts, which is a breakfast place in the USA if you didn't know, and we were acting all normal at first. Then, the entitled mum walks in. We didn't think anything of it, and we just ordered the food and sat down. We wait 10 minutes and then our food is ready. My mum tells me to go up to get the food and I go up. Then, I see this lady going into our food bag and unwrapping the food. My mum saw it and she came over. My mum says, "What are you doing?" And the entitled mum, we'll call her Karen, says, "I'm seeing if this is mine," in a Karen tone. My mum says, "You can see the ordering number on the bag." Karen just rolls her eyes and walks away. Of course, she sat next to us. We were eating normally and Karen turns around saying, in a Karen tone again, "People make mistakes, you know." My mum said, "Still don't open other people's food." Karen rolled her eyes again and turned around. That was the end of it, and me and my mum laugh at it to this day. Dude, there is literally no excuse for doing something like this. Like, even if the food was yours, it wouldn't really matter because quite frankly, you shouldn't be touching any kind of food while you're up there without being 100% sure that you're going to be leaving with that food. I mean, for example, wait for your number to be called or look on the damn screen or the bag and be 100% sure before you do anything. Yeah, I agree that people make mistakes, but your average person does not shove their hand into somebody else's food bag. Alright everyone, that is that for today's episode of Entitled Parents. I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for watching and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have stuck around to the end and you did enjoy the video, don't forget to smash that like button down below. Just a reminder that if we do hit 5,000 likes on this video, the next episode of Entitled Parents I do will be half an hour long. At this stage, tomorrow's episode is looking like it's going to be some choosing beggars before we wrap around for a bit of pro revenge the next day. And make sure to let me know in the comments below if there's a particular subreddit that you'd like to see as well. Super happy to look into any subreddit, and if I like it, I'll definitely put it on the channel. But I don't want to drag this outro out too much, so I'm going to look at wrapping things up there. Before I do end things though, I just want to let you know that there are two awesome videos that will be appearing on your screen right now, one of which I would highly suggest you click on. If you enjoyed this video, you're going to enjoy one of those and you will not be disappointed. But otherwise, that is going to wrap things up for today's episode of Entitled Parents. I just want to say again, thank you so much for watching. I do hope you're all having a fantastic day, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for another video. Bye.